We're going live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dragon Con, the American Sci-Fi Classics Track. This is Dragon Con Goes Virtual 2020. And we are here tonight to talk. It's an appropriate time for it. We're here to talk about the 90s and TV shows, mostly on Fox, around that time. We called this the Friday night sci-fi death zone. And the reason we did that is because when I believe it was the X-Files debuted, and it became a hit on Friday night, and then they moved it where I think it became bigger on Sunday, but they decided, well, if it worked once, surely it'll work a zillion more times. But we'll get into all that. But first, let me introduce our amazing panelists. One internet away from me to my, I'm going to figure this out eventually. There it goes. To my left, Nathan, how are you, sir?
All right. How are you, Joe?
Fabulous. I'm just as exhausted as if I was actually at Dragon Con.
Well, then at least you're getting the experience.
I'm getting it. But we'll talk about that later. 2 internets away from me, Lola. Tell people who you are, and somehow she has a rum bucket. How did this happen?
I have 2 rum buckets because I saved them.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm double fisting it because I don't want to get up. That's a technical term.
Yeah.
Two fisting. So it's the Hey, I just said streamy hard. Did you see that in the message when I messaged you? I said streamy hard. I was trying to
say anyway, let's move on to
Lola Lariscy.
1, 2, 3 internets away from me, my unindicted co-conspirator on the American Sci-Fi Classics Track, Mr. Gary Mitchel.
Unindicted because I know where the bodies are buried. And I am the co-director of the American Sci-Fi Classics Track. You can find me here on the Twitters. You can also see the articles I write usually every Monday about what physical media, slip discs, what physical media is still coming out that's geeky. It's currently on Dragon Con hiatus. I will be bringing it back. Also, there's not a lot of new stuff coming out right now because, the world. But yes, I am a veteran of the Friday Night Death Zone as well. And I'm looking forward to talking about it.
And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. I have to count because I'm from Alabama. Lastly, right there, Michael Williams.
It's okay if you have to take a shoe off to get there. But I'm Michael Williams. I'm a science fiction, urban fantasy, and horror novelist. You can find me on the Twitters at McManlyPants. And I was in college during the 90s, but I was a huge nerd, and so I experienced the Friday Night Death Zone. A lot of other people at college didn't experience the Friday Night Death Zone because they were partying. I wasn't partying.
No, you got TV to watch.
Right.
Yeah.
So what did you guys, were you all into the X-Files during its first run?
My father sat me down. Okay, I learned a lot about my father thanks to the X-Files. Well, really just this one thing, but this is enough to learn about your father. So my father was a lot older than my mother. He was in World War II. He was in Iwo Jima. So he sat me down when the X-Files came on. I didn't even know what it was. I was like, whatever, Dad. He sat me down. He was like, I want you to see this program. This is real. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, man was in Iwo Jima. Apparently he was like a few feet away from the American flag being raised. My uncle said that if they had just moved the camera over a little bit, they would have gotten my dad. So I'm like, dude was in Iwo Jima. If he says there are UFOs, there are UFOs.
I'm with him. I'm with him.
I'm just going to note that several of the biographical details that you just listed for your father actually track pretty closely to the smoking man, and so this is especially on point. And it's entirely possible that you're a human-alien hybrid. I feel like there's no better place to tell you than Dragon Con.
No,
it
now's
would
the time.
explain so much. I mean, I don't really get sick, knock on wood, and I'm weird, so. And I never felt like I fit in, so I think I am. I may be all alien. My mom passed away, so I can't really ask her, but it's possible.
I think it's very possible. Nathan, what do you remember about the Friday night? There were other sci-fi shows, but mostly in my memory, it was on Fox, where they would try everything for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Earlier today, I said that Fox stole the moniker "The House of Ideas" from Marvel in the '90s, but then they decided to cancel everything. So actually, not too different from Marvel in the '90s. So I mean, I guess it was something that was in the air. But there were a lot of really good shows that they would put out there, and then they would kill. I mean, Adventures of Brisco County Jr., MANTIS, VR5. Those were all really good shows. And Sliders, they put Sliders there to die. And I don't care what people say. There aren't 5 seasons of Sliders, okay? The thing on the Sci-Fi Channel was like a travesty, okay? That was not the show anymore. That was some weird thing, But that
was extremely complicated Sliders cosplay. And I meant to cosplay, but it's not, Sliders.
Yeah, and I say Sliders still counts as a show that only lasted 2 seasons because the first 2 seasons are really the length of 1 season. So there's really only 2 seasons of Sliders in my mind. So, but it was weird because it's like all these shows were so great, but they kept canceling them.
Yeah, well, I remember one of the first things I did with Joe back on the Revolution SF, back when it was Zealot, was saying, Fox stands behind genre programming the way the KGB stands behind dissidents in Mother Russia with a pistol in a small room.
Yeah, it was more like the grave of ideas, than the home.
Yeah, but there was a lot of stuff. I mean, it became a TV trope. Fringe actually started there but managed to escape.
Fringe,
the other dimension.
Fringe, I remember when Gary and I when we were doing daily and weekly updates on Revolution SF. Fringe was the first sci-fi TV show on Fox in I think either 14 or 17 years that got a second season. At the time that it got the second season, because of everything else that they canceled.
And it was touch and go. I remember watching Fringe, and every year it was like, is it going to come back?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, with Fringe, you're getting out of the '90s, but then there's also the big kahunga Firefly.
That's the one everybody loves to bring up.
Yeah.
But Alien Nation was a Friday night show.
And such a great adaptation. Alien Nation was such a magnificent adaptation.
We've done whole hour panels on Alien Nation, but the show just tracked. It just went boop straight. Like it was as good and maybe better than the movie.
Like the show was different from the movie, but not in a bad way. Like not in a way that in any way denigrates either of them.
Yeah.
Like the movie is trying really hard to be this like very serious like cop story, like allegory. And they're working really hard to have it be like very grounded, And then the TV show like works really hard to emphasize the fact that like not everything is a crisis in the lives of these creatures. And people, whatever. But like it tries to present the fact that like there is more to it than the immediate crisis of the movie, and it really works to humanize them and also to make us like feel sympathy for them in a way that the movie like it does, but it does from a completely different angle.
Yeah, well, the TV show leaned harder into the allegory and the angle.
Yes. Yeah, and it didn't worry so much about like being dead serious all the time.
Right.
Like it allows moments of comedy. It allows moments of levity.
I also want to say Darren is a genius for calling us geniuses and realizing what we did with the scheduling of this.
What did we do? I take full credit. What did we do?
Yeah, good.
I'll let Joe.
It's Friday night.
See?
I got that
See?
beforehand.
Yeah.
We're professionals, guys. We know what's happening.
Yeah.
What
We had a 1 in 7th chance of getting it right, and we did.
Yep.
Yeah, but Fox, and the main reason Alienation is also a one to mention because it's one of the only ones that didn't die because of ratings. It died because it cost too much. They could do 4 TV shows for the cost of 1 episode of Alienation.
Oh wow!
So that was the main reason they killed it. It was like we could. They were like, "This is good," but
yeah.
And it was a TV show that was very aware of the trends in television and was not afraid to poke fun at them. I remember in one of the TV movies they did after the TV show had been canceled, there's a scene where the main character and his across the hallway neighbor, who eventually becomes his girlfriend, they're sitting down to watch the debut of a new TV show that's been really hyped. And it airs for approximately 27 seconds and then gets canceled. And and they make a big point of like, oh, we're in the future where they know instantly whether or not people like TV shows. And it's basically just depicting what Twitter, does.
Yeah.
I was just reading, I don't know how many of you remember VR5, but they were talking. And apparently that was also one that was canceled because of cost rather than ratings, because when they would go into the VR, when she would go into virtual reality, it was basically like a dreamscape kind of thing. All the colors were very garish to show people like, hey, she's in VR, she's not in the real world. And what they did is they filmed it in black and white and had to touch up everything with the color. And that was a hugely expensive process. So that killed it just because it was like 1.5 million per episode, which in those days was way too much.
Yeah.
And wasn't that the show that Anthony Stewart Head was on?
Yes.
Before
So
Buffy.
I've never seen VR5. What is it about?
So it's sort of like an espionage sort of show with VR kind of put over it. So I rewatched the first episode today. They're all on YouTube. They were never released on DVD. Okay. They're all on YouTube. So if anybody watching this wants to watch VR5, go on YouTube. But so the idea is her father and sister, there was this weird thing when she was a kid. It's Laurie Singer. She's playing a character named Sydney Bloom, and her father and her sister, there was this whole event when she was a kid, where they had to get out of the house because this weird man showed up, and they got in the car, and then there was a car accident, and her father and her sister died. Her mother was so distraught that she overdosed on pills and is in a coma. Or is catatonic, I guess. She's awake, like her eyes are open, so she's not in a coma, but she just like won't move or respond to anything. And anyway, Sydney's playing around. Now, this is in the 90s, mind you, and so it's like a Windows 95 computer she's using. She figures out through this lash up that she has, because she was playing around with some like VR thing where it's like you put on the goggles, and it's a very blocky sort of like world that you're in. But then she like accidentally puts the phone on the modem. No, the dial-up modem, and somehow that with her lashed up like thing that she has allows her to enter like people's minds, whoever's on the other end of the phone. And so she's like, it's like she's within their subconscious. So they're not aware when she hangs up. They're not aware of what happened, but they feel like whatever happened in that dreamscape, like they might feel something, but she's the only one who's consciously aware of what the experience was. So she uses it to find killers and trying to figure out what happened with her dad that night. There's this shady organization called the Committee that is like trying to control like, VR technology, and there's some nebulous thing going on with that. And that's kind of the point of the show, is to like figure that out. And the horrible thing is that it ends on a cliffhanger.
Oh,
should I go into spoilers on the
we'll get to that.
I'm just shocked that nobody found like Compaq or Gateway or somebody, or like all of them. Get them all to buy advertising during this and pay for the show.
Heck yeah.
The dad was played by David McCallum.
Yucky.
And the mom was Louise Fletcher, also known as Kai Wynn on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Ah.
Yeah.
Wow. It's one of those things, another, and we've done panels on, we've done panels on tons of these, like we've done sci-fi Death Zone panels before, but some of these shows you could do a whole panel. There's enough stuff going on. Speaking of VR5, one show that I wanted to mention that's also not great, that was quickly canceled. It was called Freakylinks.
I like that.
I am shocked. I thought Manimal was coming.
I like Freakylinks. It was like 2000, something like that. It had that guy, Ethan something.
Ethan Embry, yeah.
Yeah, I liked him. I liked that show.
I'm totally with Lola on this. I loved the concept of Freakylinks. I think that there needs to be more really interesting TV about, because of my day job, I think there needs to be a lot more TV about interesting information security questions. And that was a great show. That was a great take on things.
Because no one really understood what the internet was on that show or in the makers of that show, but they just thought, okay, we think the internet could be haunted.
Yes.
So here's a show. And it kind of worked. It kind of worked. Because Ethan Embry's just he's the everyman kind of guy, and he was just some nerd on a ghost hunting website, if I'm not mistaken, or a supernatural mystery website, like we all were at that time. And he never, whenever he would go to websites, I remember the websites always looked really good. None of them looked like GeoCities or Angel Fire sites like the actual internet looked like.
Yeah. Having just, started a podcast about such things called Arcane Carolinas, I think everybody is on those websites.
I think you're right. I think you are correct. And cheap plug, your Arcane Carolinas panel is tomorrow.
Sunday at 4 o'clock.
Yes.
Awesome.
And I want to give a shout out to Ryan Schweik saying Happy Con, Ryan.
Let's see.
The show, my favorite, if I had to pick one, is probably one of Brian Fuller's many attempts before he finally was able to
Dead
hit.
Like Me?
I almost Dead Like Me was my first love of his, and then Pushing Daisies. Mine is Wonder Falls. I thought Wonder Falls was a beautiful show. It had the light touch of whimsy. It had a great premise of this girl who works in a gift shop at Niagara Falls, and she sees the little tchotchkes will come to life and send her off to try to fix things. William Sadler was her dad. It was just a beautiful show, and Fuller planned a crossover between it and Pushing Daisies before they were both killed.
What?
Yeah.
He has no luck. Either his show is canceled or he leaves. He left Hannibal. He left American Gothic. People just don't get him. He's ahead of his time. He's a genius.
I'm still mad about American Gothic. I looked for it.
The 1995 show or the most recent one?
Oh, the 95 show.
That's on my list. That's on my list. Cool. Sean Cassidy produced it.
Yes.
And Gary Cole.
Yes.
Was
Gary Cole was a genius on that show.
Because
I'm gonna have to come in the weekend.
Wasn't he? He was. Although they didn't come out and say it, he was the devil.
Basically.
But he was a sheriff in a small town, and coming from a small town, I can confirm. Yeah, I get it.
I will still say, I will still to this day, when I hear something knock, I'll go, "There's someone at the door."
I love that show, and I think that that was suffered from the X-Files effect. After the X-Files hit big, there were a lot of sci-fi shows that they put out, and they didn't nurture them. This was one of them.
Once they moved the X-Files, they thought, well, surely we can do it again, because we didn't expect the X-Files to be a thing. And then they even Even Chris Carter tried again on
Millennium,
Friday
and
with
he had a third show.
Harsh Realm.
Harsh Realm. Yep.
Millennium.
No Love. It lasted 3 years, I think.
Millennium lasted a couple of seasons, maybe 3.
3.
Okay. And
Spoken like a man who owns it on DVD, I'll know.
Harsh Realm, though, did not. Harsh Realm was kind of the same show as VR5.
Yeah. Similar.
The only thing I really remember about Harsh Realm was on an episode of the X-Files after it got canceled. Mully and Scolder. Thank you.
That's their name.
Has it already been a long con, Joe?
Mulder and Scully. They go into a house investigating something, and Mulder walks by a TV, and Harsh Realm is playing. He looks down and goes, "Huh, that was a good show," and keeps walking. That was it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he gave Millennium its finale, basically, on the X-Files. Also.
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and speaking of X-Files, Lone Gunman was a Friday night show.
I loved the Lone Gunman.
Lone Gunman was great.
Oh, those were my 3 favorite guys, and I won't say what happened to them, but I still cry sometimes.
That must mean it's a happy ending. No, X-Files is a great example of a show that basically cheated its way out of the Friday night death slot. It ended the first season in the bottom 20% of all shows on network television that season. But Chris and Fox was constantly trying to cancel it and had put it in that slot because they figured this isn't going to last, you know. But Chris Carter knew that the rule in television at the time was if you get a letter, if the network gets a letter about a show, then that equals 10,000 viewers or something like that. And so he made sure that there were people active in alt TV X-Files on Usenet.
The news group.
Including Chris Carter and a whole bunch of other people from the crew. They would go and populate it with posts about like how much they loved the X-Files, and then he would print those out, take them into meetings with the Fox executives and say, but we got all these letters on the internet. And he repeatedly convinced the Fox executives that the show was much more popular than the ratings seemed to suggest, and that they just needed to stick with it until it developed an audience. It turned out he was right. But he absolutely, it was a con job from start to finish.
Well, this is during the 90s is the period when all the networks said no science fiction other than Star Trek can last. And so there was no point in their minds to trying to sustain any kind of a science fiction show. So the ones that did survive are the ones where they did do something like that, where they had to do some sort of trickery or whatever to just keep themselves going.
And they moved it. They moved it to Sunday nights, and that was the other. It was once they moved it, they started getting more ratings.
Yeah.
That's true.
And that's actually a fact about this too, because there were shows that were doing well that got moved to Fridays, and that killed them. Like Pushing Daisy, we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, Pushing Daisy. What about
it got moved to Fridays, and then it died. Star Trek got moved to Fridays, the original series, and then it got killed.
Yeah, A-Team and Knight Rider, both of their final seasons were Fridays. Yeah.
So wrong.
Wait, this is awesome. Hang on a second. I'm going into the. She was.
Me too, Deanne.
Thank you, Deanne. So was I. It's good to see you again. I never knew you then, but now we know each other across centuries.
We probably all had different users' names back then. I had a different username.
Did y'all do that? Let's just stop the panel. Did y'all do crazy nicknames on the internet? Because I was Joe Crowe from the start. And I don't know why I didn't do something different. I don't know.
I was at Cerulean Lobster.
See? I was just Joe Crowe the whole time.
I had a ton of different handles.
See?
It never occurred to me to use my own name.
It never occurred to me to not use my own.
Yeah, it never occurred to me to use my own name either.
I know. I guess you've got nothing to hide, Joe Crowe.
Branding. That's what it is. Yeah, I'm as pure as the driven snow, Lola. But
it doesn't snow that much in Birmingham. Hush.
Yeah, you're right. Another, but speaking of shows that were on other nights, and they went to Friday to Die. What night was Space Above and Beyond? Was it always Sunday?
I think it was Sunday. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was always Sunday.
Okay. Well, I stand corrected.
Yeah, but it wasn't just Fox. I mean, Fox was the big,
They're murderers.
Because once Fox launched Friday nights, once they started doing stuff on Friday night, they would just put whatever just to see.
And something's got to stick.
Yeah.
There was another, one of my other favorites was on NBC. It was a Jeff Goldblum police procedural called Reigns, where he thought you were never sure. He was either seeing ghosts of his victims,
I do remember,
or he was crazy, and the show played it it could be either way. And it was
that was a great show.
How cool is that? I did not know that.
That was phenomenal. And they marketed it really hard as like, this is Jeff Goldblum doing television, so you know it's going to be good. And it was good.
Another really good show that was moved to Friday to Die was the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Which was a very good Terminator television show. And just in the second season they moved it to Friday to kill it off, which I'm still really upset about because it's another show that ended on a cliffhanger, and all these shows that end on a cliffhanger just frustrate me to no end.
Yeah, Lena Headey, I think I said her name right. She was an amazing Sarah Connor.
Yeah,
Headey. I don't know if I'm saying it right. I should.
Lena Headey. Yeah,
Headey.
I might have done some research.
Cersei.
Yeah. Although in the end, if Terminator hadn't been canceled, we might not have gotten her as Cersei Lannister. So.
That's true. She would have been too busy.
That's true.
But I thought Summer Glau was good as the Terminator in that.
Oh yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
She's got that "I'll kill you with my brain" type persona.
I saw her at a con, and she told me that was her favorite role of all the roles that she's played.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
She sees that as the show, not Firefly. She sees Sarah Connor Chronicles as the show that got away.
I get it. There was so much going on with the Terminator mythos that they could use, and they used way more of it than because at first it was like, like it was John Connor's brother. I'm like, but then eventually John Connor showed up too. And
it was Reese's brother. It was Reese's brother.
You're right. Reese's brother, and it was Brian Green from 90210.
Yeah,
and
but
that
he
was
got
awesome.
hot. He got super built.
What happened? Yeah,
well, because it was a TV show, they were able to play with. They were able to play with time travel in a way that the Terminator franchise usually gets. I mean, Genesis tried to do the same thing in a movie of playing with time travel, but a movie, a 2-hour thing, you can't do that much with time travel and really make it interesting. But Sarah Connor Chronicles played a long game with time travel that actually seemed to be paying off and getting really interesting. And then, let's give it the axe.
And we got Shirley Manson as a T-1000 style Terminator.
Oh man, I forgot about that.
Cool. I liked that.
I love her.
She's so cool.
The a couple of shows that I don't want to forget to mention that always come up when people talk about quickly canceled shows came from this era, and one of them is Mantis. Which is by the creators of the also quickly canceled, but on a different night, Flash TV show.
Oh, yeah. That was a Tuesday night show. Tuesday was almost as bad as Friday.
Oh, yeah.
It was crowded.
When I watched an episode of Mantis before doing this panel, and I had forgotten Christopher Franke did the music for that show.
What?
And now, like watching it, it's hard not to notice it because I'm also a big Babylon 5 fan. But it's like, oh wow, produced by Sam Raimi, music by Christopher Franke. It's Carl Lumley playing what was his name, Dr. Miles Hawkins, and it was such a good show. I was like, wow, this is like way better. I remembered liking it, but I thought, it's going to be something that's 20 years old and I'm going to watch them but actually I really liked it. I was getting into it. So it holds up. Yeah.
It was produced by Sam Raimi. I know nothing about Mantis.
He's a man who's been paralyzed because he was shot, and the bullet hit his spine, and the Mantis suit allows him to move around, and so he becomes a superhero basically. But because it was a bullet that paralyzed him, he's like no guns. So what he has are these darts that paralyze people. and that's his attack.
Yeah.
And he's got a flying car, so that's
Yeah.
Well, that's always
The pilot.
that's always TV magic.
Yeah, in the pilot show, he actually wore a regular business suit over the exoskeleton, so people wouldn't realize he was in an exoskeleton, and I thought that was very cool. And then when they went to show, they were like, well, he's a superhero, so he has to wear a superhero suit. So he was running around in the exoskeleton, and I was like,
Oh, yeah. And in the 90s, those superhero suits were gigantic.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. And it was great seeing an African American superhero.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. And Carl Lumley is good in everything.
He was in Alias. He is so awesome, and he was in Supergirl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, recently he's been in Supergirl. So he's the voice of Martian Manhunter on the Justice League cartoon.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, so he's played 2 Martian Manhunters.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Or the same one twice.
But he, I like that show, and also the other one I wanted to mention for sure was Brimstone.
Oh, you have stolen it out of my brain to talk. I love Brimstone. I want to hear somebody else talk about Brimstone for once in my life.
Brimstone was, I only think, I'm sure it had about as many episodes as Manimal did. But the dude, the long-haired, cool guy from 30-something, maybe he wasn't super cool in 30-something, I don't remember, but...
Also Lex Luthor's father from Smallville.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Lex Luthor's father was the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the devil, there's lots of shows with devils on them on Friday night. But the that guy, John Glover was the devil, and the 30-something guy, he killed his wife's murderer, and went.
No, his wife's rapist.
Rapist, thank you. And then he went to the bad place, and the devil said, "Hey, buddy, I'll let you out, but you gotta capture a bunch of other escaped demons."
Ooh.
And there were 100. He had, I think, 100, maybe 99. I feel like it was 100 tattoos that represented the bad guys. And every time he would catch one and send him back to hell, one tattoo would go away.
It's the plot for Time Tracks, but instead of time travel, it's hell.
It's hell.
It's such a great show.
Peter Horton, thank you, Jessica, in the message group. The 30-something guy. That's what. But that show was so, like, you could do it now. You could do it today.
They did so much to try to keep that show alive. They moved it from one coast to the other, the setting, to try to interest people in a different kind of show. They cast Tank Girl as his sidekick for the second half of the first season.
Yes.
They had his wife encounter him and be convinced that she had seen a ghost or something. He leaves a present on her front porch and rings the doorbell because one of the rules is he's not allowed to interact with her. So he leaves a present on her front porch on their anniversary and rings the doorbell and then goes and hides in the bushes. And she stands on the front porch and has this meaningful moment where she knows that he's out there. It's so good. They had the same actor who plays the devil in the second half of the season also play his guardian angel. And they excused this in canon by saying, can you tell I love the show? They said explicitly, well, once you've seen an angel, the human mind is overwhelmed, and you don't really have room in your brain for the appearance of more than one angel. And since the angel you saw first was Lucifer, now all angels will look like Lucifer. And so his guardian angel just happened to look exactly the same.
How cool was that?
It's so much the show. It's so good.
And Glover was obviously having just such a ball playing the character.
In the early 2000s, Sci-Fi tried really hard to revive the show. They bought the rights. They started rebroadcasting it. They got all the actors together. They started doing panels at science fiction conventions, things like that. And Glover had a contract for a Broadway production that he was like, as long as we can wait until I get out of this contract, and I'm interested in doing it. But then the guy who played the cop in Brimstone got a sitcom, which a lot of science fiction people will remember as the sitcom that Terry Farrell went to after Jedzia Dax left DS9.
Oh, look at that.
Not so he maybe not Becker. I don't remember. I don't remember. He had a sitcom.
He was on
Anyway,
Becker.
they never made it work. And so they were never able to bring it back. But everybody involved really wanted to come back and do it because they loved these characters. And their assumption as actors was that the finale of the show, had it made it that far, would have been the main character finding out that the last tattoo was for himself. And that the only way to complete his contract was to die and go back to hell.
Oh,
Bad loophole. I don't like that.
Kind of a bummer after 99 episodes if you had made it all the way.
He needs a lawyer. There should be plenty in hell.
But go ahead, Nathan.
I was just going to say, a show that I think would be a crime for us not to talk about is The Adventures of Brisco County Jr.
Yeah. We, our buddies on the Alt History Track we've done panels with them. Gary has done panels with them about that show. One thing, but very quick sidebar or very quick addition to the Brimstone thing. My mind has been blown, and I gotta share this information. After Brimstone, its creators went on to do Kung Fu Panda.
Aw, well, that had a happy ending.
So now they are billionaires.
Well, they can bring the show back. They can
bring the show back.
They can fund it and everything.
yeah, Brisco County.
doing.
Yes, now Brisco County Jr.
Yeah, Lola, you wanted to talk about Brisco. That was one of your big ones, right?
Yeah. Well, I have two others that I want to talk about, so I'll let y'all talk about Brisco. Except there was a table read recently. I couldn't afford it because I'm broke, but they had a table read. So
yeah, it had a great cast. I mean, beyond Bruce Campbell, Lord Bowler. It had a great sense of fun and adventure.
They got John Astin to play the crazy professor, Professor Wickwire.
Wow!
It was one of the first steampunk shows.
Mm-hmm. Was it the only steampunk?
Time travel came up.
Yeah, well, like what I say is like it's the inverse of Firefly because Firefly is a Western in a sci-fi setting, and Brisco is a science fiction show in a Western setting. And so it's like, and that's the really cool thing about it because I wasn't prepared for that show at all. Like I missed the beginning and I tuned into it and I was like, I'm not really big on Westerns, but I'll just watch this because some of the commercials look fun, whatever. And so I watched it and I'm like, wait a minute, there's like, they're like dealing with like technology that shouldn't be there. There's motorcycles in an episode. And then like as it builds up, there's even futuristic technology that ends up showing up. And there's the mystery of who is Bly and all that kind of stuff. And it's a show that not only pays off that storyline, it then this is still the first season, then goes into a whole new storyline with Brisco and Bull are now recognized as U.S. Marshals and they're hunting down people and everything. And at the time I had no concept of the Wild Wild West. And since then, I have, I found out about the Wild Wild West and gone back and watched that show. And I'm like, yeah, this is the same thing. This is really cool. And so, like, yeah, I'd love to see more of that, like that sort of sci-fi, because it's even beyond steampunk, because it's really sci-fi in the Old West kind of stuff. I really love the mix of those two, genres.
When his memoir, 15 or 20 years ago, when Bruce Campbell's memoir called If Chins Could Kill, Confessions of a B-Movie Actor, it's phenomenal. When that came out, he did a book tour, and one of his stops was at a bookstore in my town. So I go, as do a whole bunch of people who basically look and act like I do. And so like the place is packed with nerds. And during the Q&A, one of the people in the back puts their hand up and says, I just want to say how disappointed I am that the last episode of Brisco County Jr. never aired. And Bruce Campbell says, what do you mean, never aired? And the guy says, well, we never got to see it. And in the course of the conversation, they figure out that this guy, whoever he was, his local Fox affiliate just never aired it. And so Bruce Campbell is like, okay, everybody just hold on. And then he spends the next 5 minutes at the front of the room acting out the last episode of Brisco County Jr. just for this guy's benefit. And if that doesn't tell you what an amazing human being Bruce Campbell is, then nothing ever will.
Yeah.
That's a nice thing to do.
I see some chatter in the comments from people saying, like, why aren't these shows available and whatnot? I can tell you The Adventures of Brisco County Jr. is available on DVD. So if that's a show you want to check out, go buy it.
Yeah, you can find it usually at Walmart for like $15, $20.
And Brisco is streaming now because I watched the first episode maybe a few weeks ago.
Oh, what service is streaming it?
I feel like Amazon Prime.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that. But I have seen it with my eyeballs recently. But yeah, eventually a lot of these shows did get DVDs, but like one of our like I Need Investor for a Cult TV streaming service with all this great stuff. That's what we need.
User.
Just that. I just want all of these shows at one time where I can just watch them if I feel like it.
Yeah. Another one I want to mention was on CBS called Moonlight.
Yeah.
Show.
Yeah, that was a great show.
I like that one.
Yeah. It was a really great vampire show. It was really, really popular. It was doing well, and they canceled it again, I think, because of costs. And they canceled it just before this certain book series called Twilight came out.
It would have benefited from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it was one of those. Go ahead.
The guy in it, I can't think of who it was, but I remember the guy went on to do something else. And
Hawaii Five-0.
Yeah. Who was the guy? I'm 2 in, y'all. The double. So y'all got to help me.
It's one of those shows they had to film at night, so it was super expensive. That's the problem with vampire fiction.
Yeah.
That's why there's so many episodes of Forever Night where he has to be awake during the day.
Yeah.
They can just film it indoors and put blinds up, put black velvet blinds up.
But no,
if you like Moonlight, there's a really great series of novels written in the early 90s by a writer named Pat Elrod. She mostly writes under P.N. Elrod, E-L-R-O-D.
Oh, yeah.
And this series is called The Vampire Files. And they're gangland Chicago, but they're a very similar concept. Vampire who basically has to become a private eye. Great. Love interest, the mysteries, everything about him. There's like 8 or 9 books. Really, really, really good.
Let's see. Jessica Nettles comes to our rescue.
Alex Laughlin was the guy.
And it is Amazon Prime. Thank you, Rachel G.
Alex Laughlin. I was thinking it was Irish.
Thank you, Rachel. It is Amazon Prime. So yeah, Brisco County.
I have 2.
I was coming to you. So yes, hit us.
Okay. Now?
Yeah.
Okay. One of my favorite shows ever. I mean, I was so upset when this got canceled that I cried and I went into a deep depression and I kind of like felt my soul drift away from me. That's how bad it was. It was called Odyssey 5.
Oh, wow.
I loved that dang show. We're at Dragon Con where kids watch. Dang show.
Dang show.
And I looked it up. It was Friday night because it premiered on a Friday night. So it was Friday night. It was on Showtime.
Okay.
And it lasted like 13 episodes and they canceled it.
What was that about?
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. First, let me tell you who's in it because you'll know a lot of the people. Oh God, I can't think of names right now.
RoboCop was in it.
Peter Weller.
Yes, yeah. RoboCop. Peter Weller, the guy from Covert Affairs who played Augie, who I love. Him.
Christopher Gorham.
The guy from Reign, R-E-I-G-N, who was also in Man in the High Castle. He played the guy's German father. He's an English guy, but he plays French. What's his name?
Let's just do a whole panel on. We can't think of who these people are.
This guy is great. Anyway,
I know the character in Man in the High Castle. I just don't know his name.
Hold on. This is such a great show. All right, so they're astronauts, and it starts. They're in the International Space Station, and all of a sudden, the Earth disappears just right in front of them.
That's not good.
But it started such a great show. So they get visited by an entity who's like, dudes, we really don't want this to happen. And we've got a time machine, and we're going to send you 5 years back. And you're going to wake up and you're going to be 5 years in your past. And you need to figure this stuff out before the world blows up.
But it was Showtime, so they didn't have to say stuff.
Yeah, they didn't have to say stuff. And it was 2002. What's that dude? Sebastian Roche. That's his name. He's been in a ton of stuff. He's awesome. And it was so good because it's very character oriented, because they wake up. Okay, Christopher Gorham, he's an astronaut now. He's in his 20s. He's a young astronaut because he's like 22, but whatever. We believe things. It's science fiction. So he wakes up and all of a sudden he's 17 in his parents' house, and he has this girlfriend, and he's like, what? And he has to pretend not to be a scientist because he's like a scientist astronaut, So he has to pretend not to be a scientist. He's still the, messed up kid who did drugs and kept getting in trouble. And, there's another lady who, she wakes up and she's still married to her ex-husband. That's rough.
That's not good.
Yeah, that's awkward. You see her wake up and she's like, oh, no. Oh, no. So she's got to be all like smiley, like, because they can't talk about what's happening. They can't let on anything because, of course, there's a nefarious organization who is behind the world blowing up. And, they're kind of clued in that these people are here. So they can't talk to each other or talk about it. They have to act like they're supposed to be in their lives 5 years ago. So it's all about that, because you see like their personal lives blow up because the lady starts fighting with the husband and her kid has cancer. And, you just see the interpersonal things start to blow up. But at the same time, they have to meet at Waffle House once a week to go over the plan. So
I get that.
Yeah, I get that too. I meet at Waffle House.
There's a little shade of dead like man there.
Yeah.
It's not really Waffle House, but it's like some kind of diner they meet up at. And
yeah. And so what is your second show?
All right, this is an honorary mention. This one had it worse than any of these shows.
Uh-oh.
This was the year 2000. I'm going to set the stage. An awesome show about some freaks and some geeks premiered on a Saturday night. That's like the first and the last time a network has done that. It was NBC, if I remember correctly. And even then, 20 years ago, on the Usenet forums, people were like, why are they doing this on a Saturday night? And other people were like, I don't know. That's crazy. They're going to kill the show. And they killed it. I think it maybe lasted 13 episodes. But get this. It was produced by Judd Apatow. Now, this was Apatow.
One of those.
Apatow?
Applesauce. This was before he was Judd Apatow, though. He was just Judd Apatow. So
it was an amazing collection of everybody who was anybody before they were anybody.
Right, yeah.
James Franco, Seth Rogen. You had the psychiatrist from Bones. You had Linda Cardinelli. There were tons of people. Oh, the guy from Silicon Valley, who I love him. Barton Starr, that's the actor's name. Did you ever watch Silicon Valley?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, the Satan worshiper guy, but I guess it's not Satanist guy. Him. But in Freaks and Geeks, he was like 14, and he was 5 foot.
Right, he was a tiny little man.
He was tiny. They were all
else
tiny.
Became adults, and he was still kind of looked the same. It was
gangly. He was like a smaller version of how he looked grown up. But I think about it, and part of what made it endearing is they were so little and cute. But if the show had gone on, because the main guy who was on Bones, Francis Daly, he within a year he was like 6'5" or something. So I think about it, if it had gone on, it wouldn't be as cute because you have these 6'5" geeks, and they're supposed to be 15. It's probably for the best maybe that it ended, but it still upset me.
Yeah, that never happens with shows with the supposed teenagers that are actually like in their 30s.
That's
right. Never, ever.
I know.
I want to dive into the comments just for one thing. Nope, not that one. But yeah.
I'm sure there is. There are a lot in there.
I guess okay, but right before him, Baywatch Nights. Oh my God!
I remember it, but I don't think I watched it.
Oh, I watched it, buddy.
Okay.
This was.
I'm just going to keep drinking until I don't remember it.
Yeah, good. It was.
I don't know if there's enough alcohol.
I don't think there is. It was. Maybe that's our lock-in show. We just have to sit and watch Baywatch Nights next year.
It's a good idea.
Gary's out. But it was Hasselhoff playing his Baywatch character. But when the sun would go down, there'd be freaky monsters and aliens on the beach.
That's just wrong.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Yes.
They did that, yet they cancel all the other shows that we talked about. Jeez.
Yeah, everything will now be Baywatch Nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, Deborah. Yes, you are.
Well, there's two of us, me and Deborah.
Okay, the two of you.
Yeah. But yeah, and Hasselhoff sang the theme song, I'm pretty sure, like he did.
It's a great way to save money.
Yeah.
Unless he demanded more money, he might have demanded more money. And a cheeseburger.
He should have demanded more money. Hasselhoff is worth every penny. Okay, now let's talk about something else.
Well, I think, unfortunately, we have to kind of end on that note because that's kind of time.
We're going to end on Hasselhoff is worth every penny. I love it. Are there other shows that we from Friday nights? We covered the Harsh Realms and the Millenniums and all that stuff. I think we kind of got them all, more or less.
What
we could do a whole hour on an additional batch of shows.
Mm-hmm.
What about that show that's like a man witch and an animal put together?
Oh, we don't talk about Manimal on this panel.
We don't? Okay, all right.
Because something will happen.
I mean, other than Firefly, but that's, that's a panel.
Again, we can talk about Firefly for hours, and we have, and other tracks have, but yeah, the Firefly was kind of, as much as we groused about Friday night sci-fi cancellations, then Firefly came along and we thought, oh, this isn't gonna, and then it did. But
it was clear from the get-go that Fox wanted to murder that show.
And they kept moving it for baseball. I remember, I get very invested. I get very emotional. I don't know if you can tell, but I get very upset. And they kept preempting it for baseball. And I'm not a sports person. I'm not saying anything bad about people who are. But this was way before TVGuide.com had the schedule online. So you had to go by, TV Guide, the actual thing. And it would say Firefly. And it was a lie. Because there would be no Firefly on my TV.
I was constantly trying to TiVo Firefly and watching baseball, and just for like 5 seconds, and then just being angry and deleting it.
No Firefly. There's no Firefly.
The worst in the TiVo era was you get like 38 minutes of baseball and the first 22 of Firefly or whatever else.
Yeah.
Until it came out on DVD. And even still, one of my prized possessions was I had 2 VHS tapes that had all of Firefly, and it had what Joss cut it because he hated it, but the network made him do the little intro.
Show.
Yeah, here's the way it was. The Earth got used up. We went and you can't find that anymore. But yeah, those were little pieces of VHS gold for me.
And then they also, after they canceled Firefly, didn't they put poor Joss Whedon on Friday again with Dollhouse?
Yeah.
Yes, and I like that show too. That was a good show.
And again, a really fascinating show with really great performances, really interesting science fiction concepts, really deep storytelling, interesting world building. A show where the concept is these characters are not the same from one week to the next, develops a really interesting meta plot. Like there's so much work that went into that show, and clearly Fox just wanted to kill it.
Why did they hate him?
Way-
There are reasons to hate
Well,
him.
from what I understand is the network executive who greenlit Firefly was then fired, and then the new executive came in, and as what tends to happen in TV, when the new executives come in, they want to get rid of the shows from the previous executives because their shows need to be the ones getting ratings.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that.
There was a general hatred of sci-fi, though, at that time. It's only recently that sci-fi has gotten any kind of respect out of TV. It back in those days, especially when cable was much weaker than it is now, and there was no streaming and all that, everyone just thought science fiction was just this thing that nerds watched, and if you weren't Star Trek, it wasn't successful, so why invest anything?
Yeah.
I think that's a direct result of science fiction films becoming much more profitable. And much more popular and like entering the mainstream.
But again, we could talk another hour about Baywatch Nights, but I guess we have to.
We have to yield the floor, huh?
But let's go around the horn and everybody tell us where you can find yourselves if you should wish to be found on the interwebs. Nathan.
You can find me at the 42 Cast, which is your ultimate answer to fandom, geekiness, and everything. It's basically just like the panel discussions you hear here, except it's just audio. We talk about any geeky topic and with the rotating cast of people. And also just recently, I've started a new podcast called Time Streams, where I am the co-host with my friend Juliet, where we're watching all of Doctor Who from the very beginning and talking about the episodes. She's never seen any of the classic series before, and I have been watching it since I was 5, so there's a dichotomy there, and it's kind of fun with us sort of trading our thoughts back and forth.
I really wanted you to say you were watching Time Tracks, but go ahead.
Oh no, that's all that I have.
That's a whole other thing.
But no, I would like to talk about Time Tracks with people.
Oh, we will.
But nobody's watched it.
And I do want to give you a shout out, Nathan. You've been pushing for this panel for like 2 years, so
yeah.
Thank you. We'll do another one. We'll just talk about more stuff. Clearly, there's more to talk about. Lola, where are you on the interwebs?
Twitter at Lola Lariscy. It's there on the screen. Discord, Lola Lariscy. Facebook, both Lola Lariscy and my real name, but I really shouldn't be getting my real name out there because the fans will stalk me and I'll have to get a restraining order. So I won't say my real name here.
And now, Mr. Gary Mitchell.
You can find me here on the Twitters, and you can find me on the DragonCon American Sci-Fi Classics Facebook group, which or our YouTube channel, which if you're watching this live, you found it. So you found me.
You're here. You're here right now. Just
You're
don't
home.
leave. You are
we
home.
pre-recorded? We're not pre-recorded.
No, we're live.
We're live, baby.
So exciting. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
But we're live for like another 30 seconds. Michael.
You can find me at www.michaelgwilliamsbooks.com. You can find my publisher at falstaffbooks.com. You can find my podcast, Arcane Carolinas, which is basically the X-Files in North and South Carolina. It's the strange, supernatural, and unexplained that is found on the backroads and byroads of the Carolinas and on Sunday, Georgia, at www.arcanecarolinas.com. And you can find us here in the Classics Track on Sunday at 4 p.m. I think that's everything.
Guys, thank you very, very much. This is just like Dragon Con. We ran long. Everyone was in a tizzy. This is great. We will see you guys in a few minutes for our next thing, and we will see you all weekend. Thank you guys very, very much.
Happy virtual Dragon Con.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching.